Hey guys, it's me, Rena from Snailworks Crochet. In today's video, I will be assembling a lot of blankets. This has been on my bucket list for a while, but when I first started to crochet, I genuinely worried about the amount of stuff I would collect because with any new hobby, you tend to collect a lot of stuff. And because art requires making things, I would like to make things, but I wouldn't always like to keep things. So when I first started crocheting, I actually looked into charities that would take crochet donations, and I found quite a few. But the one that stood out to me the most was Warm Up America. They're a little unique in the sense that they accept donations of crochet or knitted squares, and then they will assemble them to make blankets. So that had been on my mind for quite a while. So long story short, I looked into how I can assemble blankets for Warm Up America, because what they do is individuals from all over the country will mail in their sections, crochet or knitted sections that they make, and then volunteers will put them together into blankets, and those blankets will be given to homeless shelters, hospitals, retirement homes, so on and so forth, whatever charity. It's kind of funny because the whole idea of, knitting or crocheting squares and then assembling them together reminds me of American Girl Molly, where I think it was the 6th book, she learns how to knit and is basically struggling to figure out knitting. I think she feels really bad about not being able to knit blankets, but eventually she and some other people end up doing a joint effort where they knit squares and then combine them together to make blankets. And since American Girl dolls are kind of based off of actual history, I wouldn't be surprised if that type of tradition is what inspired this charity in the first place. So on their website, you can actually look into how to assemble these blankets. You need to, 1, reach out to the volunteer coordinator, 2, make a donation to cover essentially the price of shipping you the sections. And I did all that and, made my donation, talked to the coordinator. She asked me a couple questions about allergy concerns and unwoven ends, and I gave her my shipping information, and then they sent me the box. And let me just show you that box. Holy shit, this thing is huge!
Look at that little fellow on there.
Shut up. I just got home from my business trip and I got a delivery that this thing arrived, but they sent me tracking information. And I knew it was about 50 pounds, but I did not expect this thing to be so big. Oh my god.
That little fella got glasses on him.
It does have glasses. Time to bust open this sucker. Oh my goodness. Oh! Gave me yarn. Okay. There's so many of these. Oh my god. There's so many of these. I'm gonna have to figure out how to organize them. I'm glad they gave me yarn. I was originally planning on using some of my scrap yarn, but this works too. I'll definitely use this first and join, but oh my god, I'm a little overwhelmed, honestly. There's so many. Holy shit, there's so many. Okay, so as you can see, there are a lot of squares, and it is nice that they gave me some yarn to help join these squares, because I was originally planning on using some scrap yarn I had, acrylic scrap yarn I had, but we're here. And It's gonna take me a hot while to organize these into manageable blankets. So now that I have my box, I need to figure out how I'm going to be assembling all these blankets because, oh boy, it's a lot of blankets. It's a lot of sections. Even though I know it's 500, it's still a lot, man. It's a lot. So one, I need to figure out how to join these squares. When the coordinator reached out to me, they attached like a guide of how people do it. But since they're all crocheted and knit by different people, different yarns, different tensions, it's gonna be difficult. According to the coordinator, one of these boxes of 500 makes approximately 25 baby blankets, 20 lap blankets, 14 child blankets, or 11 adult blankets. So I'll probably make at minimum one of each and then kind of see how they all line up. But let's figure out how to do this. Okay, so I'm still a little bit overwhelmed by the sheer amount of squares. I did try my best to organize them by color a little bit, but it's still too much. So I think my first line of attack is actually to separate out the chunky yarn blanket pieces first, and then I can kind of figure things out. When it comes to chunky yarn, I think these are best off as lap blankets, and according to the website, that's about 25 squares. So let me see if I have 25 squares first. I think I do, but let me see, and I'll make a judgment from there. I definitely have 25. Okay, so that means I can be a little bit picky. I think all of these would be nice. Most of these are using similar yarns, and I think that'll be nice together, especially if I use that brown yarn that it came with. So here's the thing. I was working on joining all those chenille yarn squares, and then I just thought about it for a little bit. And they're looking kind of ugly. And I need a better I was not happy about how I was joining them. And the method I was using was not it. I was using slip stitches to connect these together, but this is not a look, okay? I am not making use of these squares. Frankly, I don't think I did a very good job at them. And it's not using these to the fullest potential. The thing is, I actually like how I arrange the squares together. That's not the problem. But it's more so I'm not connecting them like they should be. Partly because of the yarn, but also it just isn't gonna work. I'm not very used to working with chenille yarn because I hate it. So I think I'm going to abandon this for now. I might marinate a little bit, stew a little bit, and I might actually end up frogging this and maybe just resending the squares back. I don't think I'll have this problem with all the other squares because they're using not chunky chenille yarn. But I think the chunky yarn squares I might have to send back. You know, I sure am learning a lot about seaming together blankets, because originally for this one, I was hoping to go for a more 3D seam, but it looks ugly, and I just realized as I'm basically finishing up the seams on this blanket that I have to hold my work in a different way. Otherwise, it's just gonna look ugly. It's a bit late for that now, but I think the next blanket I end up making, or not making, assembling, is gonna be using either mattress stitch or back stitch, because these slip stitches are, I cannot do this anymore. Okay, I have my first blanket done and weaved in, so, which is fantastic. That's great. We love it. We stan. But now I gotta make all these other blankets, and I just need to figure out what to do. In terms of the yarn I have left over of this, I have this much left. I'm not surprised that this is not going to last me for multiple blankets, but I at least want to use this up first before I delve into my own yarn stash. So I want to find some colors that actually look good with that brown yarn, because it's kind of a struggle. And so yeah, one baby blanket. I don't know if you've noticed, but my room is such a mess right now, as you can see, with all these squares everywhere. I also brought in a bunch of boxes so that way I can pack them up and ship it. I tried my hand at organizing by color, but it's kind of a moot point because there's just so many squares. This one I thought was kind of interesting. You can definitely tell someone had a lot of leftover granny square all-in-one yarn here. I thought that was kind of funny. These were interesting. These were all a really interesting cable knit type of square. I'm gonna have to dig through the box to see if I can find multiple, because there seems to be quite a bit of these in here with yarn. This beautiful tweed color, which funny enough I think I'm gonna use next, it actually included a sticky note on there that said great for a scarf, and I think that's what I'm gonna do. I think I'm just gonna make these a scarf because it will go with the brown yarn, and it's fairly lower commitment than a blanket, because right now I'm just overwhelmed. You know what we love? Taking full advantage of office resources to print out a bunch of donation forms. I have a feeling I'm gonna need a lot of boxes to send these blankets, and I'm gonna have to put in donation forms for all of these. Okay, so I finished putting the squares together for the scarf, and honestly, it's super cute. The person who donated the squares was completely right when they said perfect for a scarf. It probably wasn't their initial intention for it to be put together like this, but honestly, I just think it looks really cute, especially with the brown color that they provided. It's a look. I can see someone having a lot of fun by adding like a mushroom applique, or maybe some appliques that are kind of cottagecore-y. I don't know. Or it could just be a neutral scarf. So yeah, that was my little detour into avoiding making blankets. I finished the chunky yarn blanket, and it actually looks functional. Now someone can enjoy a chunky yarn blanket. What I ended up doing with that is I actually had a skein of Big Twist Posh, which is the only chenille yarn I tolerate working with, is now going away because Joann's is permanently closing all their locations. Rip Joann's. I mean, it was an unused skein anyway, so I basically used that to sew up all the ends and connect everything together, and then I did a single crochet border around that. And what's great is that I didn't have to return chenille blanket squares. But as I'm thinking about it, I'm realizing, just due to the sheer amount of squares I have, it's going to take me I feel like it's going to take me months to get through all of these. I don't know. I don't think I can finish this all in one video like I initially intended to plan it. I think I might split this up into either two, maybe even a third video, depending on how many blankets I make. I'll have to think a little bit about it because, again, I'm still a little bit overwhelmed. But for now, I will be ending my video here. If you made it this far, thank you for watching. And wish me luck on connecting all of these squares into blankets. It's gonna take me a hot while.